Hey, everybody. Welcome to youtube.com/off-the-left-eye. My name is Curtis Childs, and today I'll be hosting a discussion on spiritual priorities for people in the modern era. I want to be thinking about what is it that matters to people who are broadly under the umbrella term of spiritual or truth-seeking, religious, parapsychology, a number of terms that I feel like converge on this urge to search for what's true in life. And I have here with me Dr. Jeffrey Mishlove, who you can find him on the YouTube channel New Thinking Aloud. It's just a part of a long and illustrious career he's had in these fields. So Jeffrey, thank you so much for coming here. Would you tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your background?
Hello, Curtis. It's a pleasure to be with you today and with your audience. A little bit about me. I'm a parapsychologist. I also host the New Thinking Aloud channel on YouTube that focuses on parapsychology and related topics in psychology, philosophy, health, science, and spirituality. I have written a few books, The Roots of Consciousness, Psi Development Systems, about training psychic abilities, and The PK Man.
And we have a link in the description to Jeffrey's channel, so you can all check it out more for yourselves. So good to have you here. And we just have connecting into audio right now, Jacob Israel. So, hey, Jacob, I'm going to kick it to you. You're muted right now if you want to unpop that and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi. Okay. Right on. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited. This is great. This is many years in the work. Started out in life knowing there was more, continued to seek it, ended up the World Wrestling Federation when it was WWF. I was their head writer. Between the Attitude Era, 99, 2001, left there, went and became head writer for a show called Thunderbox, a big boxing show with Cedric Kushner Promotions, and then went to Christian TV and was like the head writer for Daystar Television, and left it all because I knew that God had other plans. And then here I am now. I have a YouTube channel. It's Jacob Israel. Pretty easy to find me on YouTube, and I'm a novelist and a writer, and also I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah, well, we're happy to have you. And we have Jacob's links in the description as well. So yeah, this came about because the two of you were some of the people I've gone out, and other members of the Swedenborg Foundation have been happy to be hosted on your programs and the programs of others. So we sent out this invitation to have a discussion, and we appreciate both of you showing up to do it. I just want to read the blurb that was to describe what I want to do here today. So we'd like to thank some of the, off the left, I would like to thank some of the content creators who interviewed a member of our organization by inviting you to participate in a collaborative discussion, which we hope will be engaging, uplifting, and enlightening for everyone involved. Our intention is to include a broad and diverse range of perspectives to discuss the topic of spiritual priorities for people in the modern era. And I want to get into what I mean by that. I want to start with, so this channel, Off the Left Eye, that name comes from a recorded spiritual experience. So there was Emanuel Swedenborg, for those of you who are not familiar, was this fascinating historical character, a sort of leading scientist, inventor, politician who began having what we would now call scientific or spiritual, mystical, paranormal experiences, whatever you want to call it. And he talked about seeing, being able to see the way things worked in the afterlife. And there's this quote that he had where he says he was taken to see a discussion in the afterlife. And I'm just going to read a tiny little excerpt from the beginning. He says, "I was taken to an outdoor arena used for discussing issues of wisdom. Angelic spirits from all four directions who had gathered there were told by angels to discuss three mysteries of wisdom." And then he goes on to list what they were. That's not what we'll be discussing today, but that format. That even there he's talking, and to him, angels, angelic spirits, these are all just names for people who have learned to various extents. But that the idea that maybe the epitome of human discovery is to take an idea and discuss it. So I'd love to do a little bit of a discussing with the two of you here today. I would love to start. I mean, you've both had a good long history in delivering messages to audiences, and because of the interactive nature of the internet now, you've probably heard a lot of feedback back in your careers. I'd love to know, like, what are people looking for, or what is moving them to search out the kind of content that you make, and what is it that what need do you feel like you fill for people, or anything like that? I want to know what's in people's hearts these days. So, I mean, Jeffrey, I'd love to.
Jeffrey, what do you say?
Yeah. You want to start out?
Well, as a parapsychologist, it's pretty self-evident, because we hear every day from people who say, I'm having a paranormal experience. There's nobody I can talk to. If I try to discuss it in an educational context, people think I'm crazy. The scientific establishment doesn't want to recognize it. And for the most part, many conservative religious establishments don't want to address it either. Or even worse, they might say, this is evil. You should avoid this sort of thing. It's the work of the devil, or it's unclean, or, there are many different ways to sort of discourage people. And yet the truth of the matter is that this is a natural human ability. Almost everybody has paranormal experiences. Many surveys have been done that show that roughly 70% of the population reports them. Some of them might be examples of delusion or even mental illness, but for the most part, these are very real experiences, and people want validation, and they want to know what's the science behind all of this. What can we say about it in terms of people who are studying these things professionally?
That's so well said. And that's exactly where it started for our channel as well. I actually started before this. We had a Facebook page where we were just putting little quips out from Swedenborg's experiences. And as soon as we got on there, people were wanting to share their own experiences. They were saying, I had something that happened like this. And just the comments just started flying in a way that we never anticipated. And I think you really put your finger on it, that people have almost nowhere to be taken seriously, or even just to people who want to hear and aren't just going to dismiss them right out of hand. So thank you for opening up with that. Yeah, Jacob, what do you find drives people? And have you encountered any of that as well, of people who want to just be heard in an area of life that's not sort of mainstream?
I mean, it's hard to, when you have like faith in more, it's kind of hard not to have other people that don't have faith in more look at you a little funny. It's kind of a sting that's in the heart of a lot of people, that they say that this, a spiritual awakening, a resurrection, whatever words you want to use, that it could be a lonely process, because not everybody is motivated by that. They're still kind of trapped in this temporal world. Like, this is, my name's Bob or Harry or, Josephine, and that's all I am. So when you have somebody who comes in and says to you, I think I'm more, I think I'm designed to be more, I don't think that it's impossible for a guy who has nothing like me, who was sick and was abused, an 18-year-old mother and in the projects, to say, one day I'm going to be here. And then everybody laugh at you, and then say, well, one day I'm going to also do this. And then they laugh at you. And one day, and then here I am many, many years later. I started this actually in my novel. You want to talk about kooky? And it's not a plug for my novel, but I entered this into evidence when I wrote it back in, 2008, I think it was published first, and that was re-released. But it was entered into evidence because I knew that by the time I was 50 or so, because I had faith, and with faith, all things are possible. I knew one day it would happen. Everybody along the way, you're kooky, you're crazy. My children, two of my children, I have 4 children. I was a single father with 2 children to begin with. And met Danielle, and she had her child, and we became an instant blended family. But I remember having, the 12-year-old and the 13-year-old at the table saying, you're not going to have a big YouTube audience. And I said, I'm going to remind you. I'm going to remind you. So even people that are close to you, even the people that they're designed, they're supposed to be there to encourage you and to help you find this grindstone. The word is torment in scripture. It's the test. It's like the testing of our faith. So sure. People don't want to question more because it has been demonized. Why wouldn't it be demonized by the world? Because the world wants you trapped here. It wants to consume you. And when you say, "Oh, I'm not part of the world anymore. I'm not part of the system," the world has a problem. So you're going to have people that are trapped here coming against you. That was Christ. You had two people, Jesus and Barabbas. Jesus, Barabbas, Jesus the Christ. Who do you want? I want Barabbas. I want the guy that I understand, the guy who's a revolutionary. We can't do things by love and faith. So I totally understand what Jeffrey's talking about. And to answer your question, people have a hunger. So the people that are finding Jeffrey, the people that are finding you, people that are finding me, they're looking because they have this desire in their heart for more. And thank God that we've been given this position to be able to share it.
Yeah, the internet is got a lot of pros and cons to it, but what an amazing tool for being able to have people who are looking for that very specific thing find you.
True.
That for example, Jeffrey, you're talking about people who have had some kind of parapsychological experience and they can connect directly to someone who's talking about the same kind of thing on your show. I certainly thought back when we were starting this YouTube channel, it's back in 2010, I thought nobody in the world is going to be interested in Swedenborg's experiences. There's absolutely, there's no market for that. There's no way. But that's when I found out what are people looking for. If I'll answer the question myself, it seems like people are looking for a more holistic description of life that takes into account things like paranormal or parapsychological experiences and integrates religious and spiritual experiences. And they're incredibly empowered and open-minded to be able to sift through the marketplace of ideas themselves and find what fits. They're not, there's no longer this sense, I guess I get the sense that it used to be this way historically, that they were kind of gatekeepers. Is my local pastor going to approve of this or not approve of that? But now it seems people feel very empowered to reach out and find, it's really, they're looking for the reaction in themselves when they say, oh, I resonate with this, or this seems true. They're very willing to go for that. And I used to, before I got online, I don't know if this was true for either of you earlier in your careers, I used to think people pretty much fit into general categories where you have, there's Catholics and there's Protestants and there's Muslims.
In a box.
People are in these boxes, and those boxes are relatively intact, but I've seen every combination of beliefs you could possibly have on the web. It seems like it's something I've found is that my interaction with audiences has taught me is that the world is much more diverse than I thought it was. I'd love to hear from either of you. What's something you feel like you learned in interacting with all people you've interviewed and also the people who have been watching your programs? What is that? What's something that you've been taught about the human race?
Well, I think that we may be evolving spiritually or psychically faster than anybody realizes. Mm-hmm. Let's take Swedenborg, for example. For centuries, really up until the present era, Swedenborg has been thought of as a model, a hero, somebody who has traveled further into super sensible realms than almost any other person. But I think we're in an era now where we have, for example, millions of people who have had near-death experiences, who have also visited the afterlife, like Swedenborg. We're getting many, many accounts like that. And I'm under the impression that many of these people, because I worked with some of them, are able not only to have had under a crisis circumstance a near-death experience, but through meditation or through other spiritual disciplines, they can go back there at will. So the sorts of things that Swedenborg did hundreds of years ago that seem almost impossible to accept for many people are now becoming, I would say, almost commonplace.
What do you have a percentage? I know you mentioned people having parapsychological experiences at about 70%. How many people do you think are having full-on spiritual experiences like that?
Well, at the level of Swedenborg, of course, it's still rare, but it's not completely unknown. I would say there are probably hundreds of people who are having experiences at that level. To me, the era that we're in today, I think of it as comparable maybe to the 15th and 16th century, where explorers were discovering new continents and mapping out whole new continents. And we're doing that now, only the continents are within us.
Are you talking about the Renaissance?
Yeah.
Okay, now I want to point this out because Beyonce's album's Renaissance. Hello. Right? So like, and people will say that's a goofy reference, but not really, because everything around us is like a symbol. Everything is a sign. And I will say, I'm going to up the ante from however many people say, oh, maybe 10%, 20%, 50%.
Here we go.
I'm going to say everybody, every single person on the planet has these experiences, and they're called dreams. Pretty much everybody's had a dream in their life. Pretty much. I haven't met anybody who hasn't had one.
Yeah.
But very few people understand the significance of it and understand the importance of it. I know a guy that you may know that loves dreams as well, visions and dreams and everything else. So more people need to hear about this stuff than they understand. They just, they've been told not to pay attention to it. That's if you have mental problems. So you can have somebody, like Jung over you talking about your dreams. That's not anything spiritual. You're not like in collaborative effort with a creative force that's creating entire worlds so that you have this symbol and this expression to understand what that means. My life has been guided by dreams at times. And if we're not paying attention to everything, these experiences that Jeffrey's talking about, that you're talking about, then we're not paying attention. We're not living our life. Man, it's time for people to wake up. It's a renaissance, right? It's like he said. And there's a reason why the world is crazy right now. It's woke time. Woke, right? So you got the natural, the carnal, the fearful interpretation of it, the lustful, the whatever interpretation you want to go Beyonce's album. But you have the spiritual and the earthy and the heavenly, the twain, they meet here. And at some point they got to connect. So I'm glad that you have shows that you're doing. I'm glad Jeffrey's doing what he's doing. And I'm just glad to be alive.
It's a great time to be alive. And thank you for that connection. You mentioned dreams. This is going to be, maybe it's a tangent, but I think it speaks to the larger point that we've started to make here, which is the ubiquity of these spiritual experiences and people's need for a framework to put them in or a community to submit them to. So I've never had probably what I would call a prophetic dream, but I was very close to someone who did have a prophetic dream. And it was something trivial, but it was absolutely, I saw it unfold in real time. And I wouldn't know where to put it. So it was my wife, who I was dating at the time. We were taking a walk in a state park called Tyler State Park near where we live. And she was telling me about a dream she'd had the night before, that her best friend, she had moved somewhere, they didn't see each other that much, but they had been good friends. She had this dream that her best friend bought a white Jetta.
Okay.
And she was telling me that, and she's like, I don't know why I had that. It's not like her friend's even searching for a car or anything. And then as we were walking down the path, the phone rings and it's her friend, and she's like, oh, it's Lindsay. And she picked it up, and she had just bought a white Jetta. And I don't know how it gets there. I don't know if, I'm not sure I want to submit that to scientific, rigorous study, but it's certainly this undeniable something happened there. And I think that if living in a world where generally people think there's no such thing as any kind of way your brain could actually access the future, I would just have to say, well, that was weird, and file it away somewhere. I guess something I'm wondering is how important, if we're talking about spiritual priorities for spiritual people in the modern era, how important is the work of just normalizing spiritual experiences? And is there kind of a tipping point moment where it becomes something that's seen as, well, this is mainstream and it's real in some way, even if we don't understand all the mechanics of it? Is it going to be that suddenly everybody's coming forward, with their stories?
Can I just ask you a question?
Just go for it. Yep.
Have you had a dream recently?
Any dream?
like any dream recently that would stand out, like one maybe oddly enough, like maybe a night or so ago, because that would be really cool.
Okay, wait a second. No, I'm gonna need a second to think about this. What was? I can't remember.
You can't remember.
Yeah.
Dude, I was going to say this would have been fun because I think that I could, in a very short period of time, express why it doesn't have to be about the future, these dreams that we have. Sometimes it's a way for us to understand what's going on psychologically. Like I had we were buying a new house and it's a miracle how we got this house to begin with, but I kept having these dreams that the roof was leaking. It was going to leak. It was going to leak. I said, there's something wrong with the roof. There's something wrong with the roof. There's something wrong with the roof. There's going to be a leak. There's going to be a leak. For whatever reason, I ended up getting this house and they had to do something, get a title or something. So we ended up renting it for a year for $1 a month. So we saved all this money up. When we finally closed on Christmas Eve, there was a terrible snowstorm and the roof started leaking. Now, prophetic dream, maybe, or was it the fact that I was so scared of change that if the roof went bad, that I wouldn't be okay? If anything went bad, would it be, so we have to look at them more, not just about, it's literally, the roof's going to literally leak, but it's like, well, what am I trying to understand? And what I should have understood was that it would be provided for, that God has a purpose and a plan, and I can't mess that up because we're all part of that plan, especially if you're like, if there's that groove that you need to get into and it's narrow and it's straight and we get in, just getting into the groove, I think it's going to be all right. I think that so people should look at their dreams, but not just thinking, it's, maybe it's like, why did I dream about my ex? Why did I dream about my father? Sometimes dream of a father's, God, why did I dream of a snake? So I love the fact that Swedenborg goes into all that. I think that's one of the things that drew me to you to begin with, because just out of the blue, I found you. The algorithm decided, right? Here we are. And now many years later, God's in charge of everything. So I apologize, but I really wanted to hear if you had a dream, and I wanted to hear if you remembered it, because I thought it would have been very cool.
Yeah. You know what? I'd love to get like a live dream reading. If one pops up to me, I will definitely share it with the panel.
Keep your journals.
Yeah, that's actually, I'm interested. Jeffrey, how often does the worlds of parapsychology and dreams intersect? And is this, as Jacob was pointing out, everybody's got dreams. Is this a sort of an on-ramp or an easy access point for people?
Yeah, parapsychologists have been looking at dreams seriously since the 1960s. There's a great book out about it called Dream Telepathy, where they actually brought people into the laboratory, monitored them while they were dreaming, hooked them up to EEGs so you can tell when they're having a dream. And people in another room, sometimes a very distant location, would endeavor to send them images that appeared in the dreams. This research has been replicated many times. So it's a subject that interests parapsychologists a lot. From my point of view, actually, there's a deeper question. Dreams are one tool of many, but the real question that I think you and your viewers and probably all people at some point or other ask themselves is, how can I become the best version of myself? And that's where I think dreams can be especially important, because my experience is my life has been totally altered because of dreams. But it didn't happen out of nowhere. It happened because I was on a quest. As Jacob described, he was on a quest as well. And when you're on that quest, when you're trying to become, as I say, the best version of yourself, that's when the universe is going to reach out and help you. And that can occur through synchronicities. It can occur through dreams. It can occur through the people that you meet or the opportunities that open up for you. But you have to want to be the best person you can be.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me a little more about that urge. The best person I can be. Is this like I've got, like I'm going to imagine that my hair starts growing back in, or what does it mean to be the best?
Well, it's going to be different for everybody.
Yeah.
I happen to become a parapsychologist and a YouTube channel host, but for another person to say, I want to be like Jeffrey, is not being the best version of themselves necessarily. The best version of yourself might be to be the best father or the best spouse or the best brother or sister or the best friend to the people you know, or the best employee in your company, or usually it's what Joseph Campbell once described as follow your passion. We all have, I think, deep passions, and for many people it's I want to know God, I want to be closer to God. That may be what's best for some people, and for other people it might be the wrong direction.
I gotta jump in, because I love what you said. I want to be the best father, the best friend, the best brother, the best employee. Everything that you mentioned is someone that serves someone else, a servant. I want to be the best servant. I want to be the best servant to my family, to my employers. I want to be to life. And that's the thing that I think is beautiful, is the idea that the best version of you isn't really even a version of you. It's something that's bigger than you, that we all experience, so that what I do to others, I do to myself. It's almost like we're all in this together. And you got the right attitude, because a lot of people are like, I want to make this much money. And because see, that's where the problem comes in with the teaching. You just got to be, you go, what do they say? Go do you do you, right? Well, what if you just happens to want to be like the best drug dealer in town, right? That brings you temporal joy, but you don't understand that when you're hurting the whole, you're hurting yourself eventually. It just sometimes takes time for things to metastasize. Is that what the word is? I just want to look smart on your show, Curtis. I don't have a thesaurus in the background here. I'm sorry, man. Yeah, no, that was great. You metastasized right in front of our eyes there. So I think that it's beautiful. And I think the thing with the dreams too, and I'm not sticking on this point, there's a reason. When you go to sleep at night, where do those dreams come from? Who creates it? How does it happen? So there's this higher conscious mind. I don't like to call it the subconscious. I love how the world takes things and minimizes it. The thing that is much greater than me, that I can't really understand, that's in me, I'm also in. And it's almost like I'm a creation of that greater, whatever that is, that creates the world of the dream. So it's almost like I'm in that, which I would call, we'll say God. Jeffrey would call maybe the universe, whatever you want to call it. You could be called Joey the creator. I'm fine with that. I'm in the Father. The Father is in me. I can't understand what the Father understands. I can only do what the Father tells me to do. So you have this picture of these two people that are in us all. That's why people are searching. That's why they're hungry. They want to know that they're more. That's the slogan of my channel. You're more than you know. Put it out there years ago. And now here today, we're in the Renaissance. I love this. Yeah. It's good stuff, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, I got to watch you now.
Well, that's the point. To get us aware of what goods the other people can be doing. There's 2 points that you brought up there that I want to touch on. And first, I thought that was very eloquent about the difference between a purely self-serving to the detriment of others, best version of myself, versus a best version that is the best version, not just for your experience, but the best version for everyone. Like, for example, what both of you are pursuing, where you are living this life where you're putting out content to many people that you believe is helping them out. So many people are glad you became that best version of yourself. And I certainly that would be, Swedenborg calls it usefulness, that the more useful you are, the more happy you can become. And I think with the dreams, the other point you touched on, the importance of dreams, and Jeffrey had mentioned dreams and transformation. Swedenborg's whole journey started with dreams. He was keeping his journal of dreams when that was the beginning of his spiritual experiences. And in there were symbols. They were telling him what was going on in him. There was, instead of a leaky roof, he had a black dog that he took to mean his own pride and his belief in his superiority, because he had all these accomplishments. And so naturally he was feeling like he was superior to people, but his dreams were telling you, that's a problem. That's going to come back and bite you. And so through those dreams, they were able to, I think, sort of clear him out enough that he was able to start having these experiences. What does open people up to these experiences? I mean, Jeffrey, you were talking about people having them. Is there usually a trigger that starts it?
Well, it's going to be different for everybody. Everybody's on a unique path. But since you brought up Swedenborg, I know that he was a big influence on the father of one of my heroes, William James, the founder of American psychology. His father, Henry James, had his life transformed through an encounter with Swedenborg. He became what I believe was thought of as a lay Swedenborgian minister. Never part of the church, cool. but always clearly identified with Swedenborg. And he was a man who had been crippled in childhood. And not only that, he went through a period where he was incredibly depressed. A darkness came over him, and he just didn't know what to do about it. And actually, that was the trigger, because he was traveling in Europe, and he began discussing it. And he came upon a woman in England, as I recall, who was a Swedenborgian, and she explained to him that this darkness is well known in the Swedenborg tradition. He's written about it a great deal, and it's in confronting the darkness that we discover the light. I think, for example, Jacob mentioned people who want to become the best drug dealer.
Isn't that terrible?
Well,
there's some out there. I knew him growing up.
Yeah. There were times in my life when I wanted to be the best stock trader or the best realtor. And, I had successes in those departments, but it was never the best version of me. And so ultimately, through my own inner promptings and through dreams, I was guided to a different path. And I think if your goal is to become the best drug dealer, well, God bless you. You may discover that the universe is going to nudge you in a different direction eventually.
Yeah, and that nudging can be accomplished sometimes through these periods of darkness or these crises of the spirit that you were describing. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what role has in your individual journeys, both of you, and then in people you've talked to. What role does those crises play? I mean, I'll start a little bit. I know that it was my first serious bout with depression and anxiety and obsessive compulsive disorder that got me to go from it being a casual interest in Swedenborg's material and near-death experiences to this is my life raft that I'm hanging on to. And that really was what gave me the fuel to engage with it, to believe in it and take it seriously. Because I needed to look deeply into it. I needed to consider it. And there are times I needed it to keep me going. So to me, I've seen time and again that the times that I am least enjoying life are followed by these times of significant growth. And Jacob, has there been any of that in your story?
Yeah, everything's been perfect for me, man.
That's it.
I'm joking. I have this fig tree in the backyard, and it's been through everything, and it's become like this symbol, to me. And this year I've just given up even worrying about it, but it's just gone through everything. When it came back this year, it didn't come back. And so I understood that, if it's not producing fruit, you gotta throw a bunch of crap on it. You got to throw fertilizer on it. You got to dig up the soil. You got to break off those branches. It's not fun for the fig tree. It's not fun at all. And that's what's happened in my life. That's what happens in your life. And I think that's the amazing thing is that, we're these earthen vessels, that are so much more. There's a treasure that's hidden within us, that's the nudging that Jeffrey was talking about. That's the inspiring. I don't even think that you would say it was your choice. I would feel like it was just like things were driving you into that direction. You probably didn't have a choice. In my estimation, in my life, I don't know your life, but I know that for me, I never had a choice. I was always on this path. I was always being moved in the direction where I needed to go. It just took me many years to understand that, you know, when things are going off course and it gets a little hard, that it's just there to kind of guide me back. I use this illustration sometimes in essays that I write, where you're walking down this one road, you go to the right, storm bushes, you go to the left, the storm bushes. At some point, you're going to get tired of getting uncomfortable. You're going to get back on the right track, because what we do to others, we do to ourselves. So yeah, I think that no one can come to the knowledge of God. No one can come to the knowledge of God in their own egotistical, self-centered way. I believe that we're drawn. I think that man is made within, you know, the image of God, which is within us. And I'm just using words like God. Jeffrey may use words like universe, but I'm saying that there's something greater at work here that we're connected to, that we are a creation of, that we're connected to. And we can't help but have good news. That's what gospel means, because we can't fail. You know, we already died. There's a picture of Christ dying. He dies at a place called Golgotha. Literally, I believe it literally happened, but that's not what I'm talking about. So the spirit of the Son of God, who we really are, the best version of us that Jeffrey's talking about, was put to death at the place of the skull, Golgotha. But now we're in a day where it's rising again. We're the body of Christ. We're given the name of Christ. We're given the mind of Christ. Who are we? If we're the body of Christ, like you said, everybody has the thumb isn't the same as the toe. We all have these different versions that we're supposed to be, but I believe we're being moved there. And that's why I have great hope. And that's why I think today we're seeing so many more people get interested in this. If we have the truth, we cannot fail. And I think that as long as we're asking for it and we're being driven toward it, we're going to be okay. But the instant we start thinking we got it all, so I'm going to be like that fig tree again. I'm going to get knocked down. I get knocked down a lot. Believe me, I've lost everything a lot. I've gone, but at this point in my life, I'm 51 now. I'm like, all right, you know what? If I mess up, I mess up. I'll take my licks just like anybody else, and it's going to be for my good. So here's the good news to the audience. Don't worry about things. I'm wearing this shirt. Teach me the truth. It was the first prayer I prayed. Teach me the truth, no matter what the cost is on the back. If you want the truth, you just got to ask. You don't got to go anywhere. You don't got to go to my channel. You go to Jacob's well, you'll thirst again. You know what I mean? It's like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So we're moving somewhere, and this is exciting, and we're a part of it. And I'm just, Curtis, you're such a great host, man. You ask such great questions, and your set looks so much better than mine. Just makes me very unhappy that I'm using this like cheap laptop when you got this. Look at you, how beautiful you are.
Well, this is part of you being shaken like a fig tree, is to see how powerful my set is. No, but I love what you're saying. It's always inspiring to me, and I think it happens without fail that people will talk about the hard times in their life, but do so with an optimism. They will say, "Oh yeah, this happened. I didn't hear you saying." There's been times when I lost everything, and I hope it never happens again. You're saying, yes, there's been some stuff that I wouldn't have chosen to go through, but at this point, I'm finding a trust in the process. And it seems like to me that's becoming more and more clear. It seems unbelievable the first couple of times you go through it, but I just a couple of years ago, I was having like a couple of health issues came up, and I was feeling like, what's going on? Everything's ending. This is
right. The world's absolutely coming to an end.
This is like the absolute. I've taken some huge wrong turn here, but actually now I would never have not wanted to go through it, because I just feel like, oh, I'm so much deeper as a person. I have a more mature perspective on life. I'm much better now for it. So it's pretty cool to see unfold. And I think Swedenborg would call it Providence, and then he called the dark night of the soul spiritual trials. It was translated temptations in some older translations, but that kind of gives you the picture of, oh, I shouldn't eat this cookie, but it's more of a shake up, like the fig tree, a shake up of what we know, because we need to be made a bit pliable to absorb a new way of living. But Jeffrey, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this subject.
Well, I think a lot of people today are afraid of dying. And afraid of not only dying, but having a bad death, having a painful death. And it's a strong motivation for a lot of people. And I think that if more people were aware of the research that's going on today on survival of consciousness after death, we would realize that it's not something to be afraid of. It's much more important to be afraid of not living well rather than worrying about dying and doing this and that to avoid death. We're all going to die, and it's not a bad thing. And in fact, I suspect we've all died thousands of times.
I wouldn't doubt it. I think, I would make sense. That would make sense.
So, yeah,
it's a whole other rabbit trail. Can I say something about hell?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because this is what you were just talking about. Yeah, I've been through it. I just got here. My son just had a colonoscopy and an endoscopy. My youngest, my 10-year-old, Ethan, and he didn't really need that. Well, I mean, another doctor said you had to, but I was like, he's all right. He's not like, I was sick with Crohn's disease, like sick, really bad. I've had my intestines removed, bleeding out, lived in the hospital, was like liquid diet for a year. It was like hard. I didn't want that on any of my children. Thank God so far, minor issues here and there, but he's had these things. And I was worried. First time he's having anesthesia, blah, blah, blah. So I'm almost getting into an argument with my wife because I say, I don't think he needs it. I think it's going to be fine. He doesn't need it. There's no real, just because the blood work's a little funky doesn't mean that something didn't happen wrong with the lab. But at that point, I realized there's a big upside to going through with it and listening to this great doctor. And some doctors aren't great. I'm not telling you to listen to every doctor, but I had confidence that she had known what was in the best interest of my child. And I knew that it was in the family and this would be peace of mind. And also he has had some issues. And what if it was worse? So I had the trust, and that's what I'm learning in life is that when I go through harder times, if I can't, trust God with my child, because everybody's going to die, right? Everybody's going to experience tragedy. Nobody gets that. The Buddha says it. Go get a grain of rice from somebody who's, who hasn't experienced loss. This is something that everybody's going to experience. But without living your life, like Jeffrey's saying, and I think to live your life, to truly live your life, you have to trust that everything's going the way it's supposed to go. And sometimes you got to just take your hands off the wheel, and you got to let Jesus drive. No, I'm just kidding. That's a song. But
Carrie Underwood.
You get the allegory.
Yeah.
So I that's why I got here last minute, because this was a big stressful day for me. And I even fasted with him yesterday, so he didn't feel like he was alone. And then I passed out in the bathroom because I had low blood sugar. And it brought me back to when I was bleeding out. They couldn't stop the bleeding. And they couldn't give me painkillers, and they had to take a catheter and shove it into my groin to go on up to hopefully stop this vessel from bleeding, all while I'm like 20 years old. And I remember seeing that one person, even back then I had faith. And I knew that we had talked about God 5 minutes earlier when I snuck out of the hospital. I have a cigarette. I don't smoke anymore. I was a dumb kid. Right. And I saw him, and it was almost like he was put there so that I would have strength. I had strength for him. I can't be this 20-year-old kid talking about how God's got a plan for my life and it's okay. I'm in this wing and it doesn't matter because God's going to work it out, and then be all scared. And then here I am. So it's taken me a long time to not be. Everything works together for the good. Ultimately, we just got to learn to trust and love, and that's that. Hell, we're given the keys to the gates of hell. We have power over those gates. People don't realize this. You can let yourself into hell if you have power over the gate. Gate keeps you out or keeps you in. You can let yourself into hell. You can let yourself out of hell.
Thank you, Jacob. Yeah, I really appreciate. Well, it's a really touching story. I mean, you're caring for your child. I've got a daughter myself, and of course, and I think it's like every parent's fear that, I don't want the bad stuff that happened to me to happen to them.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one thing I don't want to have happen is the same stuff. So appreciate you sharing with that, and your own moments and that moment of, wait a second, I was just trying to reassure someone that there's a bigger picture to life and I got to live in integrity. I mean, amazing. I'm on YouTube all the time telling people, well, I think this is true about life. And then if I'm at home doing the opposite, I'm like, oh, wait. So It kind of keeps me honest. So thank you for for making that real by sharing some things that you've been through. I would love to, we're actually, believe it or not, we're getting toward the end of the hour here. I'd love to, we're outside time and space, feels like, but I'd love to go at the central question today, which we've certainly been getting at, but it's about spiritual priorities for people in the modern age. And I chose that phrasing because, as I said, the umbrella of spiritual, religious, parapsychological, there's a lot of, it's very broad. And people kind of, I'll find that when I engage with people on YouTube who are in any of those categories, inevitably there's viewers that are going to all of those different channels and say, "Oh, I saw you on this channel. I saw you on that channel." So there's something common that's drawing all people who fit under this big umbrella. What from both of you, what are the priorities for spiritual people? Everyone, how do you live a spiritual life? What's important to focus on? It doesn't have to be this be all end all expert opinion, but for yourselves and for what you've seen, what are some important things to focus on in life? I'll start with you, Jeffrey, and then we'll hear from Jacob.
Well, I have a motto of sorts, and it really, I guess I'd have to say it's an unobtainable goal, but it's one towards which I strive, which is love everyone and everything all the time.
Yeah.
Talking about love. I know that conventionally, because we live in a world of duality, people sometimes say, no, you should love God, but you should hate the devil. And I kind of don't feel that way. I feel like I'm willing to love the devil. The devil was a creation of God. Unless you're a Manichaean or a Zoroastrian, where you might feel there are two gods. There's God and the devil created for all eternity, but I don't think so. I'm a monist in that regard. And if you're a monist, then why not love everything? And even if you're not, if you're a pluralist or a dualist or one who accepts the trilogy, love it all the time. And to me, that is actually a priority. And I realize it sounds like New Age airy-fairy to a lot of people, including many of my own family members, but that would be for me a spiritual priority.
I love it. Love everyone. Can you say it again? What was the
love everyone and everything all the time?
It's hard to argue. I mean, that's great. Well, thank you. And where do you have any? Has there been a time when that snapped you out of something, when you were saying, "I'm about to honk at this person in front of me," or is there a way that you can recall of that having a direct impact on behaviors and things for you?
Okay, since you bring it up, it happened to me once spontaneously, in the strangest of times. I was asleep at night in bed. I was much younger than this, 50 years ago. Some people I knew who were angry with me barged into my bedroom in the middle of the night and with knives and boiling water and said they were going to kill me. And yes, this really happened. This did happen. But it had nothing to do with my conscious mind. I became possessed by something akin to the Spirit of Jesus Christ. And I stood up bare naked without any fear and just the strongest feeling of peace and love. And these people just walked away. They just turned around and walked away.
Wow. How old were you?
I was 25.
Okay, that one. I'm thinking. I'm hoping this wasn't like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
No.
You got some locks on your doors.
This was literally 50 years ago.
Wow. Well, so thank you for sharing that. And that's the This shows that, you know how they'll take some part of an engine component and run it through an incredible stress test that's way beyond the conditions it would ever meet on the road, and to see if it still works. It sounds like your principle worked in the ultimate stress test situation there.
in your life to tell
nothing that I did consciously. I didn't say, okay, I'm going to love you now. No.
Yeah.
It came upon me. It was, I think, a moment of grace.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Jacob, what about for you? What do you think spiritual priorities should be for people living in today's world?
You know, I focus so much on myself and like what I can do to make everything else better. You know, like how can I affect people better? And I'm always, you know, taking notes of, you know, how I handled this. How did I handle this? Especially now that I'm, you know, becoming a little more mature. I'm analyzing my behavior and like, did I handle this okay? And I do at times. There's a great passage where it says, you resist the devil, he'll flee from you. And the devil, for people that are listening, see, I agree with you, Jeffrey. I don't really think that it's a matter of somebody needs to love the devil, but I do believe that without a shadow of a doubt that God created the waster to destroy. He was the murderer from the beginning, which means that he was created that way, and the father of all lies. So what sets us free? The truth. So the truth sets us free. Somehow we're in this world of duality, like you said. And, you know, I know from working out at the gym that there's good and there's bad. And sometimes the harder the weight, the stronger you get. So I believe that there's a greater purpose to it. I think that when we wake up, maybe this will be like some kind of dream. And ultimately we're like, wow, I can't believe I stressed about that as much. But what I try to do now is I've gotten to the point in my life where I've said, oh, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. This is going to happen with faith. I'm starting to say, well, maybe I need to stop saying bad stuff's going to happen in the world.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like sure. I now say, do I need to, just because I see certain things on, do I need to put that thought out there so that people can then gravitate to it? So now what I'm hoping for is that I can just get people to maybe ask the question, you know, is there more? And realize that the best course of action is always to love. Like I go to sleep at night, I can rest my head. I have, you know, nothing to worry about because I know that I've done right. I've done, you know, I haven't wronged people. I don't purposely wrong them. And when I do it out of the ego, the devil gets in there and says, oh, you're going to let him talk to you that way? That's the way it works. He comes in and he tempts you. And if you let him in, he'll bring in 7 more friends. It's like, oh, and while you're at it, why don't you say this to them too? Oh, and while you're at it, why don't you pick up that cup of coffee and throw it at them? Why don't you grab a couple of knives and go to Jeffrey's house with a boiling pot of water, right? Because that's the devil. But you can resist that thought like you did. Like you didn't repay evil for evil. What you did was you overcame evil with good. That's the tenement of my faith, is that there is within all of us this desire to do good ultimately, but we've been formed in the dust of this earth and we died to the truth of who we are. And we're living this life ashamed that we're not good enough. And when you think that you're not good enough, you can't be good enough. So I'm trying to help people to find out that it's going to be all right. You know, it's going to be okay. Everything's going the way it's meant to go. You got to not take your hand off the wheel completely, but have a little bit of faith. And so spiritually, what I would ask for people to do is just on their own, ask. I don't know who you're asking. You could be asking yourself, but if that's all there is, you may just get an answer, right? But if there's more, you may get an answer. So I'm hoping that people get the desire. That's why I have the shirt. So when people see this, they read it at the gym, teach me the truth. And then I turn around, no matter what the cost. And I just trick them all into praying. No, I'm just kidding. I don't do it to trick them into praying. But they think, what does that mean? Right? And we've been taught to go to Moses. Go to Moses. You want to know about God, right? God's like, I want to know everybody. You're all mine. And they're like, no, you go. Because if we go, we have to die who we are. And, we'll die surely if we face it. We have to give up all of our carnal ways, and you do it, Moses. You tell us what to do. And what ended up happening, right? So we have to go to God. We got to go to, whatever name makes you feel better. My neighbor across the street is a wonderful Muslim, Allah, and you got to go. You got to go. And I think ultimately people will, because I think the lights are going on. I think there's a moment in time, just like the scriptures say, twinkling in an eye, there's a moment when you say, wait a minute, what the hell is going on? Why am I so miserable all the time? And then all of a sudden it's like, you know what? I haven't gone for a walk in a while. Then you go for a walk. I haven't been to the beach in 2 years. You go to the beach. You realize you have power. And when you speak power, because the power of life is in our tongue, when we speak blessings, we get blessings. When we speak curses, we speak curses. The power, you are more than you know. If everybody here is like Christ, in my opinion, Christ died for you, is resurrected for you. There is a creative force that's within us, and you got to get in line with it and understand your power, because everybody's creating a bunch of misery, because the world people that are in charge, whoever they are, they want you to consume. They want to keep you down here at a sluggish level when we're really meant to be more. And that's those weights. We got to push against those weights, and we'll get there. Man, do I talk a lot. Sorry, Curtis.
I believe I brought you both here to talk, so thank you. Well, and I love hearing from both of you, because from Jeffrey, I heard about the importance of love. And from Jacob, I heard about the importance of seeking the truth, which Swedenborg is applauding from the afterlife, because love and truth is what it's all about. If I had to give for me, what's the spiritual priority? I think something that I get from Swedenborg's material that's really powerful is this idea of the love of our own self-image. So he says that the thing that's most diametrically opposed to usefulness or to being good to others is what is often translated as love of self, which sounds like, oh, the good self-esteem, but it's not. This is more my desire to dominate and be presiding over other human beings, to put myself above other human beings, and that there is that inclination, the potential to that inclination in everyone. And it's very seductive, but it causes problems for everyone. When you make that, it can be there, but it can't be steering you. So just the idea of having that in mind, I see that we get so ideologically divided where we think, oh, it's because of these two ideas that we can't get along, when ultimately it's probably more because of our desire to be right, which then pushes you to see anyone who does not venerate you as a threat. I think being able to identify that impulse and see that as that's the thing that's plaguing the human race, I feel like that could be an important priority to add to the two that you had there. So huge. Yeah. Well, thank you so much to both of you. I want to give you just a second here as we end. If there's anything you want to point our viewers toward, I know we have links to both of your YouTube channels down there, but Jeffrey, is there anything, a book or upcoming, anything that you want to tell people that's coming up?
Well, for those who might be interested, I did talk about near-death experiences. There is an International Association for Near-Death Studies. They're having their annual conference this year. I think it starts on August 31st. Runs for about 4 or 5 days in Salt Lake City. I'll be there giving a keynote. It'll be for people interested in near-death experiences and the afterlife. It's a good place to be.
Wonderful. Yeah, we'll put that link to IANS in the description. Great. Good. That's so cool that you'll be there. Jacob, anything coming up for you?
I mean, my novel is, this is my passion. I have a relatively good sized YouTube channel. I'd love people to check out. It's Jacob Israel. And this is a novel. It's an allegory. It's just an awesome book because it's thousands of reviews already. People love it.
What's it called?
It's called The Calling.
The Calling by Jacob Israel?
By Jacob Israel, the book of Thomas James. Yeah, and you can find it right up. You can find it anywhere, but Amazon.com, and is usually, I like Amazon, which is terrible because I know that, they're not as responsible, but because the system is connected to that number and, the reviews, and it's like $11. I had it on sale for $11.11. That's because I always loved $11.11. And it's a big phenomenon. So I don't know what it's on sale for right now because I know prices fluctuate. But get a copy of that. Meet me on YouTube and say hi. Say hi from, and a lot of people are going to say hi to you because I'm going to share all this stuff now that I actually have a chance. Because this was a great show. I was so happy to meet you, Jeffrey. And thank you, Curtis.
Yeah, great to get to talk with you both more. Thank you for spending a little bit of time here. And if to all my viewers, if you haven't checked out the channels of both of these fine gentlemen, please go and do so. Thank you so much. Good to see you both, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.